The second season begins with Dr. Klein continuing her psychological experiment on a group of girls, aiming to prove that women deserve to hold positions of power and authority as an alternative to the male-dominated world that thrives on violence. She promotes the experiment ASA Wellness Trip to Hawaii, successfully gathering several girls to study their behavior. Klein orchestrates a fake plane crash, leaving the group stranded on a remote island in the ocean. The girls' parents, unaware of the real purpose, had supported their participation. Among the group are two secret participants in the experiment, Jeanette, who dies early on, and Nora, the twin sister of Rachel. After 50 days on the island, the girls are moved to a facility on an isolated Brazilian island for the final stage of the experiment, where they're questioned by a psychologist and an investigator to assess their mental states. The first season ended with Leah escaping her room and discovering a control center full of screens, revealing that a group of boys had also been part of the same experiment. Season 2 opens with Dr. Klein comparing the two experiments, the girls' 50-day trial and the boys' 32-day one. She's thrilled with the outcome, proof in her view that women surpass men in adaptability, endurance, and emotional strength under pressure. She instructs the investigator and psychologist to begin interrogating each participant. The story starts with Raphael, one of the boys, recounting his 32 days on the island. He admits the experience changed him, though Hare resents it because it wasn't by choice. The boy's story begins much like the girls'. They wake up on the island after the same staged crash, terrified and confused. Kieran, the natural leader, steps up and divides them into two groups to search for any sign of shelter or civilization. He leads one group, while Raphael leads the other. Meanwhile, DJ, who injured his leg on impact, sits alone on the shore, cursing his mother for sending him there. Both teams explore, but return empty-handed. Among them are Scotty and his friend, Bo. Bo has a chocolate bar, which Scotty tells him to hide since they don't know how long they'll be stranded. Scotty mocks the others, saying they're all rich kids who know nothing about survival or managing resources, insisting that only he and Bo can plan properly. Back in the interrogation facility, the investigator and psychologist question the girls again, focusing on Rachel's recent incident. On the girls' island, Nora stands by the shore while Leah climbs out of the pit Nora had pushed her into, suspecting her involvement in the experiment. Leah furiously runs toward Nora, but suddenly spots a shark in the water heading straight for her. While Rachel is happily swimming in the ocean, Nora suddenly spots a shark and without hesitation rushes to save her sister. Moments later, blood spreads through the water, but Nora keeps swimming, pushing Rachel to safety and sacrificing her own life to save her. Back at the isolation facility, each girl recalls that horrifying moment. None of them can tell if it lasted seconds or hours, but they'll still remember Nora's scream echoing in their ears. On the island, Rachel makes it to shore with her arms evered. Acting quickly, Dot heats up Anax and cauterizes the wound, while the others hold Rachel down. They bandage her arm, but Rachel feels nothing but grief for her sister's death. A week passes, and she spends her days staring at the sea, hoping Nora will return. The girls try to comfort her in vain, and finally decide to move their camp into the forest so she can begin to heal. Meanwhile, Leah becomes trapped in obsessive thoughts. She tells the group what Nora did to her, but when they revisit the site, the pit is gone, as if it never existed. The others start to think Leah is losing her mind, and she spirals further into paranoia, desperate to prove she isn't crazy. She confronts Rachel, asking if she remembers how Nora found out about the trip. The question breaks Rachel down, and the group turns on Leah for being insensitive, forcing her to stay away. On the boys' island, both search groups return empty-handed until they find DJ's mangled body on the shore, apparently attacked by a shark. The group is horrified and decides to bury him at sea, mirroring the girls' earlier loss of Jeanette. Back at the facility, DJ is revealed to be alive. He's actually Dr. Klein's son. Furious, he confronts her, shouting that she's destroyed lives just to prove a theory. Klein had faked his death to protect him after his arrest. His father, disgusted by her manipulation, tells her she's sick and leaves her for good. Meanwhile, Leah discovers the existence of another group, the boys, and sneaks into the room where Raphael is held. He's shocked to see her and confused about what's happening. Leah explains everything about her group. realizing the same experiment was repeated. Raphael initially thinks she's delusional, but with no other explanation, he starts to listen. Leah figures out the truth. The experiment is a comparative study between girls and boys, each paired with a counterpart that mirrors their traits. She realizes Raphael is her male equivalent, her match in the boys' group. She describes his personality perfectly, and before they part, she promises him that she'll find a way to escape and free them all. Leah asks Raphael to tell her everything that happened on the island. The story flashes back to Raphael's life before the trip. He lives with his humble family in a small border town and crosses the border every day before dawn to attend school. Though his parents live modestly, they work hard to support his education. Raphael describes himself as quiet, invisible to others, and unsure of who he is until he falls in love with Christina, a girl from a wealthy, unprivileged family, very different from his own. Over time, Christina's feelings fade because she realizes Raphael depends entirely on her and has no goals or ambition of his own. One day, Christina's family invites Raphael to a charity gala. Despite having soccer practice and helping his mother at her small stand afterward, Raphael decides to attend the event to impress Christina and feel worthy of her. When he tells his parents, they're shocked and disappointed. His father warns him that his grades are dropping and that Christina will eventually leave him once she goes to college because they come from different worlds. Raphael ignores his father's words and sneaks out to the event. While crossing the border, traffic builds up and in a moment of frustration, Raphael accidentally hits the car in front of him. The police arrest him and at the station, unable to contact his parents, he calls Christina's family instead. They bail him out. But afterward, Christina grows distant, seeing him as irresponsible and dependent. Their relationship falls apart. Leah interrupts his story and promises that she'll get him and the rest of the group out of captivity. Determined, Leah confronts the facility's psychiatrist and tells him a story. 2 plane crashes were orchestrated and the passengers from both were drugged and taken to isolated islands under constant surveillance. She says she knows he isn't truly in charge. Standing up, Leah looks directly into the one-way mirror where Klein is watching and says she knows she's being kept for a reason and that she's ready to give Klein what she wants. Back on the girls' island, Rachel and Leah stand by the shore, apologizing to each other for everything that happened. Suddenly, they see a floating box in the water. Believing it holds supplies, they swim out and bring it back to shore. Inside, they find party decorations, stuffed animals and plates, items meant to lift their spirits. They laugh and decide to use the box to store food. Meanwhile, Martha has completely changed. Once a gentle girl who revered animals due to her native heritage, she now hunts them herself. She's become stronger and braver than ever before. Shaped by survival, each member of the group gradually changes, and together they begin to see themselves as one family. Back at the isolation facility, Clen oversees the interrogations of Raphael and the others. She instructs the psychologist to focus on Leah and decides to take his place in the next session. The next interview is with Scotty. As soon as he sees Klein, he mimics her, saying her body language looks like she's acting in a TV drama and that she seems new to the field. The investigator laughs, taking over the session himself. He asks Scotty about the group's encounter with a wild animal on the island. Scotty calls it not just an encounter, but a savage epic war and begins recounting their second day on the island. Kieran, self-appointed leader, ordered everyone to build ash shelter before the rain came. The boys gathered wood and managed to construct a hut. But that night, they heard terrifying noises. Panicking, they ran toward the shore and stayed there until morning. The next day, the group decided to hire ground for safety, setting up ropes and securing a lookout spot. Later, while walking through the forest, Raphael and Seth discovered a locked metal hatch underground. Breaking it open, they found a bunker filled with canned food and water left by past explorers. They brought some back, but decided to hide the rest deep in the forest to ration their supplies. Scotty and Bo were assigned to store the food. While doing so, Scotty opened the bag and started eating, but Bo refused and told him to put it back. Scotty argued that they had to think about their own survival in case something happened. He pressured Bo into keeping some food in his pocket. When they returned, Bo felt guilty and later decided to go back to return the stolen food. Scotty tried to stop him, insisting they were just being smart, but B wouldn't listen. They turned to the forest, and just as B was putting the food away, the growling of the wild animal echoed nearby. They ran for their lives toward the rappel. Scotty climbed first, leaving B behind, and the creature attacked, injuring B's leg. The rest of the group pulled him up just in time. Back at the facility, Scotty breaks down while confessing he betrayed his best friend by climbing first. When asked how long they'd known each other, he says 9 years. The flashback shows their friendship before the crash. Bo lived with an abusive, obsessive family that punished him for the slightest mess, while Scotty came from a once-rich family that went bankrupt and lost everything. Ever since, Scotty had been obsessed with money and planning for the future, determined to one day reclaim the life he lost. One day, he makes a lot of money from a job and decides to invest it in selling t-shirts online. He buys a huge stock and keeps it in his home storage room. But when it's time to sell, he finds the whole place flooded and everything ruined. Meanwhile, Poe's father beats him badly, and Poe leaves with Scott to his old house. They break in through the window, and Scott, full of rage, smashes everything with an axe as if taking revenge for losing his family's home. Poe joins in, destroying everything too, like he's avenging his own family. Back on the girls' island, Rachel's mental state improves. She builds a hut with Leah and starts thinking about becoming a carpenter after going home. Fatten reads Nora's diary to find the date, realizing it's Dot's birthday. So the girls throw her a big surprise party. Dot is overjoyed, calling it her best birthday ever. But when everyone shares their favorite birthday memories, Rachel breaks down, saying she can't believe she'll only celebrate one birthday now that her twin Nora is gone. She walks away in tears, and Shelby follows to comfort her, sharing how she once caused her friend Becca's death and lived with guilt 4 years. When Rachel asks how she overcame it, Shelby says her faith gave her strength and teaches Rachel a prayer toast for peace and courage. Rachel repeats it tearfully, finding a small spark of hope. Meanwhile, at the facility, Leah makes a deal with the doctor to get close to Raphael and learn the truth about what really happened on the island. They promise to reunite her with her family if she cooperates, even showing proof that her boyfriend Jeffrey had been asking about her. Leah agrees and pretends to escape into Raphael's room, acting terrified to gain his trust. She asks him to tell her about everyone in his group so she can learn their strengths and weaknesses. Raphael begins his story, saying everything was fine until the day they decided to hunt down the wild animal, stalking them, a leopard. Seth came up with a clever plan to trap it, showing he was the smartest and kindest among them. They built a wooden pit trap covered with palm leaves and bait so that once the leopard jumped in, it would fall and die. Their trap works perfectly. The roar of the panther echoes through the forest before Kieran drives his spear into it, ending the threat once and for all. The group celebrates late into the night. Seth stands and praises each boy, pointing out their strengths and trying to lift morale. But Kieran mocks him publicly, humiliating him in front of everyone. Hurt, Seth isolates himself, while Raphael admits that even though they were close, he didn't go comfort him, only Josh did. Josh, the weakest of the group and often bullied for talking too much, sits beside Seth and shares how he was bullied as a child, especially by his brother. Seth reacts violently, pushing him away and later entering Josh's tent, where his bitterness boils over. He assaults Josh, telling him he'll never be like him, leaving Josh broken and silent. Raphael confesses this part hesitantly to Leah, who hugs him and whispers, "They're watching us." Klein realizes Leah betrayed their control when she notices Raphael's sudden reaction. Leah is dragged from the room by the investigator, who tells her she's been played and that none of their promises were real. He mentions the weapon she hid in the sink, mocking her for thinking she's clever. Desperate, Leah begs for another chance, but he locks her back in her room. In the bathroom, Leah pretends to vomit, opens the sink, and finds a phone with a note. "You have 45 seconds. Realizing the investigator is secretly helping her, she smiles and prepares to act. Back on the boys' island the day after Seth's assault, Josh barely speaks, his trauma leaving him mute and withdrawn. The others notice his silence. Seth dismisses it, claiming Josh is just being annoying as usual. Henry, Seth's half-brother, invites Josh to sit with him. Later, Kieran divides the group to search for fresh water. He goes with Josh, trying to lighten the mood. And when they find a stream, Kieran jumps in joyfully while Josh stays back. Kieran teases him, trying to pull him in, and notices strange rashes all over Josh's body. Josh insists he's sick, but Kieran knows those rashes appear when Josh is anxious or hurt. Instead of compassion, he mocks Josh again, saying Seth was right about him. Enraged, Josh snaps, screaming that Seth is the real problem. Kieran realizes something terrible happened and presses him to talk. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Seth is secretly working with Dr. Clean. Through hidden cameras, he reports that Josh is unstable and showing suicidal behavior, subtly manipulating the staff to believe he might harm himself, keeping the experiment in motion and the truth buried. Seth suddenly cuts off all the microphones and cameras in the area, breaking communication with Klein's team. Soon after, the rest of the boys, who failed to find water, return to camp when Kieran and Josh arrive, announcing they've discovered a stream. Seth runs to hug Josh in relief. But Kieran, furious and protective, snaps, attacking Seth in a fit of rage. He beats him violently before telling the group what happened. The others believe Josh immediately. He's visibly traumatized and confirms that Seth hurt him. Seth insists. Josh was drunk and hallucinating, but no one believes him except Raphael, who still sees him as a kind friend. Henry, Seth's half-brother, struggles with the truth and asks Raphael if he really thinks Seth is capable of that. Raphael admits he's not sure, but Henry eventually sides with Josh. The group decides to exile Seth from the camp. Raphael is also alienated for defending him. They all gather around Josh, trying to comfort him, but it quietly asks them not to pity him. He just wants to forget. He makes them promise to never tell anyone what happened. They agree, unaware that this confession is exactly what Dr. Klein wanted to hear after losing their audio feed. Meanwhile, on the girls' island the morning after Dot's birthday, Rachel decides to hold a funeral for her sister Nora, hoping to finally find peace. Efton, reading Nora's journal, notices a sketch of a flower with strange numbers and 2 initials. She writes them down, curious about their meaning. That night, Rachel and the others bury Nora's clothes and say goodbye. Later, Fatine sneaks back to the burial site, retrieves the clothes, and finds more numbers written on the tag, matching those from Nora's notes. She's puzzled but senses they're a clue. Rachel, sitting by the ocean, imagines seeing Nora walking toward her and smiles through tears. In the control facility, Nora is revealed to be alive, watching Rachel through surveillance screens. Clean had faked her death to separate her from her sister and keep her loyal to the experiment. The scene shifts to the interrogation room where Taylor begins his story. He recalls his life before the trip, his friendship with Henry, and how Kieran, the most popular boy at school, was admired for his charm and athletic build. One day, Taylor sees a video of Kieran training with his coach and checks the coach's Instagram, discovering a photo of him in blackface. Outraged, Taylor exposes the coach online, launching a social media campaign against him. The post goes viral. The coach is fired, and Taylor becomes a minor hero. But one night at school, Taylor and Henry stay late and hear strange noises. They follow the sound and find Kieran drunk and crying. When Kieran sees Taylor, he breaks down further, accusing him of ruining his life. Kieran, drunk and furious, tells Taylor that his coach was like family, the only one who cared about him after his father left, remarried, and moved away. In a fit of rage, Kieran punches a locker, and Taylor provokes him further, recording everything on his phone. He taunts Kieran, saying he knows Kieran wants to hit him and call him a racial slur. Pushed to the edge, Kieran finally snaps and yells the insult, and Taylor immediately posts the video online. The clip goes viral, destroying Kieran's reputation and getting him expelled from school. Henry, horrified, confronts Taylor, telling him he's gone too far. He reminds him that Kieran was broken, grieving someone he loved, not a monster. Before walking away, Henry leaves Taylor a note that simply says, "Be kind." For the first time, Taylor realizes what he's done. He ruined Kieran's life and lost his closest friend. Back on the boys' island, more than 10 days have passed since Seth's exile. When Kieran notices his lighter is missing, he assumes Seth stole it and storms off with the others. He attacks Seth, beats him, and reclaims the lighter. Suddenly, Josh, once the quiet victim, erupts in rage. He pins Seth down, furious, and douses his fire before walking away, leaving him to freeze. The others hesitate, torn between justice and cruelty, but no one moves to help. Raphael and Taylor feel guilty, realizing Seth will die without warmth. Raphael insists on bringing him clothes and a light, but Kieran blocks him, saying Seth deserves his punishment. Raphael snaps, shouting that they're not judges or executioners, and that leaving someone to die in darkness is inhuman. Kieran turns to Josh, asking his opinion. Coldly, Josh sides with Kieran, saying Seth doesn't deserve mercy, and adds that Raphael should be banished too. Shocked by Josh's transformation from timid victim to ruthless avenger, the group obeys. Raphael, stripped of his shirt, leaves to join Seth in the forest. That night, Henry sits alone, troubled by guilt. Taylor approaches to comfort him, and Henry admits Seth suffers panic attacks in the dark. He needs a light to sleep. Taylor is moved, remembering Henry's note, "Be kind." Quietly, he takes a candle and walks into the woods to bring light to Raphael and Seth. Meanwhile, on the girls' island, Fatten begins to suspect that Leah was right. Nora may have been part of the experiment. Fact still, she has no solid proof. The girls slowly adapt to island life. Rachel grows stronger, and the group starts to function like a small community. Martha, however, becomes consumed by guilt. Once a gentle soul, she now spends her days hunting and checking her traps. One morning, she finds blood near one of them and follows the trail to a wounded rabbit surrounded by its babies trying to nurse. Overcome with horror, she runs back to camp, sobbing that she's a murderer. She slaps herself until she bleeds and then flees into the forest. The girls search frantically until Leah finds her sitting on the ground, gripping a knife, staring blankly at the lifeless rabbit and its babies. It's clear Martha, crushed by guilt and trauma, killed them herself in a moment of breakdown. The group rushes to help Martha stand, but they're horrified to find she's completely paralyzed, unable to move or even speak. The doctor later explains it's hysterical paralysis, a psychological reaction to severe trauma and guilt, where the body shuts itself down as a form of escape from unbearable emotional pain. We then flash back to the day Dr. Klein recruited Seth for the experiment, mirroring the way she once manipulated Nora. Seth's past unfolds. He grew up in a broken home after his mother abandoned him to live her own life, leaving him with his father, who later married Henry's mother. Seth and Henry were raised together, but their relationship was complicated. Seth became the quiet, polite, perfect son, the one Henry's mother adored, while Henry himself was often overlooked. The jealousy between them grew silently for years. Seth's loneliness deepened when his closest friend, Julia, came to him in tears one night after her boyfriend tried to force himself on her. Seth, who'd secretly loved her for years, comforted her. That night, Julia chose to stay over, and overwhelmed by his kindness, she initiated a brief, intimate encounter. Seth was euphoric. He believed she finally loved him. But the next morning, Julia disappeared from his life completely, leaving him broken and confused, setting the stage for the emotional instability that Clena would later exploit. Back on the boys' island, Kieran and Josh grow inseparable. Kieran takes Josh under his wing, teaching him how to be strong, to never let anyone bully him again. The others spend their days fishing until Seth, trying to make peace, approaches with a fish he caught and offers it to them as a gesture of goodwill before walking away. The group feels guilty and decides to cook it. But when Kieran and Josh learn it came from Seth, they refuse to eat it. Josh, no hardened and cruel, orders everyone else not to touch it either. Bo, who's cooking, tries to ignore him, but Josh starts mocking him viciously about his weight, his obsessive-compulsive family, and how he was raised under constant punishment. Scotty snaps, furious at Josh for humiliating his best friend, and the camp erupts into chaos. Later, Scotty and Bo leave to join Seth, Taylor, and Raphael, feeling disgusted with how toxic Josh has become. Though none of them forgive Seth, they agree that Josh's transformation is terrifying. Seth suggests they try to reconcile with Kieran and Josh to build the group. But first, he says he needs to talk to his brother, Henry. In a quiet, emotional moment, Seth apologizes for the tension between them and admits that Henry's mother loves him more. Not because he's perfect, but because she truly accepts him for who he is. Real love, he says, is when someone still loves you even when you fail. The words strike Henry deeply, and he forgives him. Together, they return to camp where everyone begins to reconnect. Seth, trying to break the tension, suggests they all play a game together. But when he tries to include Josh, the tension flares again. Josh explodes, unable to contain his anger, and suddenly reveals Seth's dark secret that after Julia left him, Seth kidnapped her cat out of revenge. The confession shocks everyone, shattering the fragile peace they'd just begun to rebuild. Henry freezes in shock. Seth had told them he was only taking care of Julia's cat, not that he'd kidnapped it. Suddenly, Henry remembers what really happened. Julia's disappearance wasn't voluntary. A flashback shows Seth attacking her in a fit of rage, hitting her and taking out his frustration like a man possessed. Henry realizes the truth. Seth isn't the gentle, perfect boy he pretends to be, but a violent, manipulative monster. Furious and disgusted, Henry exposes him to the rest of the group and orders him to leave for good. Seth walks away silently, devastated, knowing he'll never be part of them again. Meanwhile, on the girls' island, chaos unfolds as Martha's paralysis leaves the group terrified. Shelby spirals into despair and cuts her hair even shorter, while Efton grows obsessed with the idea that Nora was part of the conspiracy. She notices torn pages in Nora's journal, follows the faint ink impressions, and discovers a note suggesting that Leah knows something. Shocked, she shows Shelby, and the two begin piecing together that the island might be part of something much bigger. Back at the facility, Klein visits Josh's room and learns something from him that makes her elated. Proof in her mind that her experiment succeeded. She declares victory. The girls, through empathy and unity, overcame chaos while the boys, consumed by dominance and aggression, failed. In the outside world, Leah's friend Ian continues searching for her. After digging for leads, he finds the company behind the mysterious Hawaii retreat and confronts one of its employees, only to realize it's DJ, Dr. Klein's son, who opens the door in shock. Back on the island, Fatine and Shelby discover more in Nora's journal, a full map of the island marked with strange symbols. They decide to follow the trail, hoping for answers. During the walk, Efton suddenly stops and tells Shelby she needs to pray. As a Muslim, she raises her hands and recites softly, "O Allah, place light in my heart and light in my sight." When she opens her eyes, she spots a faint blinking light high in a tree. Climbing up, she finds Asmal transmitter, a network booster connected to hidden surveillance cameras. Realizing they've been watched the entire time, the girls return to camp, but decide to keep the discovery secret until they can prepare the others, especially Rachel, who would be crushed to learn her sister betrayed them. Suddenly, a loud roar fills the air. A helicopter appears above them. The girls stare in disbelief, overcome with hope that rescue has finally come. Meanwhile, on the boys' island, Seth is officially exiled. He radios Klein's team for help, and Matthew arrives by boat to extract him. But when Matthew lowers his guard, Seth attacks and takes control of the boat. He later returns to the group, pretending he found it, telling them he'll sacrifice himself to seek help. Kieran doesn't buy it and insists on going with him. Raphael joins too to keep the peace. Days passes, the three drift aimlessly across the ocean. Seth tries to manipulate Raphael, cracking jokes and acting friendly, but Kieran sees through him. The tension explodes. Kieran punches Seth, loses his balance, and falls overboard. Seth orders Raphael not to help, insisting Kieran is dangerous and will destroy them all. He hands Raphael an oar, telling him to hit Kieran if he tries to climb back. Raphael hesitates, watching Kieran struggle in the waves, then suddenly snaps. Instead of striking Kieran, he turns on Seth, beating him in a frenzy. Moments later, Kieran pulls himself onto the boat. And before they can process what happened, a ship appears on the horizon. It's Klein's recovery team. The boys are rescued just like the girls and taken to the same facility. Back in the isolation compound, Klein summons Leah, the one she now considers the smartest and strongest of the girls. She tells her that the experiment has transformed her, that she's no longer the naive, lovesick girl she once was, but a mature, self-aware young woman. Leah listens silently, then fixes Klein with a cold, defiant stare. As Klein's phone rings, Leah smirks and tells her, "You should answer that. It's an important call," before walking out. Klein picks up and her face drains. Someone has reported her entire operation. We flash to Leah secretly acting out a breakdown in front of the psychiatrist and investigator while reading through their notes about the experiment. She spots the company's name at the top of the files. Later, pretending to have a violent, hysterical episode, she attacks the doctor while the investigator rushes in with a sedative. But instead of stopping her, he slips a keycard into her pocket. The same man who earlier hid a phone in Herbeth's room sink. It's clear he's been helping her from the inside. Using the phone, Leah manages to contact her friend Ian, who's been searching for Hernan's stop. Ian eventually tracks down DJ Klein's son and confronts him at his home. Overwhelmed by guilt, DJ confesses everything and turns against his mother, handing Ian evidence and notifying the authorities. The FBI launches a full investigation into the abduction of the girls and boys. Back at the facility, Leah feels proud she's exposed Klein, but suddenly the lights cut out, alarms wail, and the security systems shut down. Leah breaks out of her room, finding the other girls and, to her shock, several of the boys. Together, they rush through dark corridors until they reach a massive hall only to find it completely empty. Realizing Klein may have escaped, Leah sprints through the building, searching every corner. Meanwhile, we see Klein boarding a private plane, her face calm and collected. She's taking DJ with her despite his betrayal along with the psychiatrist and Matthew. She coldly fires Agent Dan after discovering he helped Leah and leaves him behind. As the plane lifts off, Klein outlines her new plan. Phase 3, merging both groups, boys and girls, on a single remote island to observe their combined social dynamics. Back at the compound, Leah and the others finally reach the rooftop and freeze. All around them ice open ocean. The facility itself is on an isolated island. Leah screams in disbelief, realizing they've been trapped once again. In the final shot, a familiar figure steps into view. Seth, alive and smiling darkly, standing among the new group on the island. He's now Klein's right hand, the overseer of Phase 3, and with that, Season 2 of The Wilds ends.